Hi everybody, it is Wednesday, March 10th, 2010. Thanks for stopping by. Today I'd like to do a little algebra with you. Algebra, or maybe I should say algebra, the Arabic term. Okay, so let's get started. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with problems of this sort. You've got a number here and a equal sign, and then a couple of numbers on the other side. They all have the same term underneath them, right? When numbers have the same term underneath, you can go ahead and cross those out because they're all the same. They cancel each other out. So what we really have here is x equals 5 plus 9, or x equals 14. Pretty easy, pretty simple, right? Okay, so now let's apply this to politics and see if it works. I'm always being asked to condemn suicide bombing, which I don't really have a problem with. I do condemn it. I don't think it's justifiable. So I do it pretty easily. But what bothers me is that no one is ever able to condemn anything else. They won't dare to condemn, let's just say, some guy in Arizona getting up, going to work, playing a video game where he murders innocent people on the other side of the globe for a living. Nobody is willing to condemn that for some reason. No one is willing to condemn an IDF soldier shooting a little boy or a little girl in the head as they sit in their classroom trying to learn algebra or algebra. No one is willing to condemn that. But they all are tripping over themselves to condemn suicide bombers. But, okay, there was recently a Christian suicide bomber who flew his airplane into a federal building. And I mentioned to somebody, he didn't do that because of religion, but what do you want to bet that he was praying before he hit that building? If he was any sort of religious man, I bet you he did pray. And of course, the person I was talking to was so put out by that. They were so offended that I would possibly try to speculate about the poor dead Christian suicide bomber. That's not respect for the dead. Then they immediately turned around and not only speculated, but told me unequivocally that they know everything about dead Muslim suicide bombers. They did it because of religion. I know that for a fact. They didn't do it for any other reason. That's a little bit more than mere speculation. That's an outright statement of guilt. Okay, so let's just think about this for a second. People don't have a problem with Christian violence or IDF violence. They don't have a problem with random violence through computers, but they have a big problem with Muslim violence. Well, let's look at our little equations here. Okay, you have Muslim violence equals bad violence, IDF violence, Christian violence, Hindu violence, basically any sort of violence that's not Muslim violence is good violence. Let's apply our algebra. We'll just mark out all the like terms. Everything that's like is gone, and here we have our equations. Muslim equals bad, IDF Christian Hindu, everyone else in the world equals good. Very interesting argument, don't you think? Okay. Now, let's do another little thought experiment. Let's compare our good Christian suicide bomber with our evil Muslim suicide bomber. Let's look at their lives for just a second. And now, of course, I'm not going to say that either one of these suicide bombers is correct in what they did. I am just saying, okay, let's look at their lives and see what is alike and what is different. Okay. Let's see. Okay, here we have our Christian suicide bomber. He grew up in affluence in the United States. He grew up with a pretty good amount of freedom compared to everyone else in the world. He grew up with right-wing radio. He had income tax. He had problems with the IRS. And he was a Christian. Now, what do people say when you ask them why this man did what he did? Was it because he was affluent? Was it because of his freedom? Was it because of right-wing radio? Was it because of Christianity? No. Of course, anybody in their right mind knows it wasn't any of those things. It was the income tax. It would take a abject fool not to see that, right? I mean, you wouldn't be so completely, ridiculously insane enough to think that he did it because of Christianity. It was the income tax. And I agree, I think it was the income tax. Now let's look at our evil Muslim suicide bomber. Okay. What did they have in their life? Well, let's see. They grew up in abject, grinding poverty with no citizenship, probably no possibility for education, and no prospects for the future. They grew up under a immensely oppressive foreign military occupation every day of their lives, dealing with soldiers who considered them to be two-legged animals, who spit in their faces and laugh at them and make life as unbearable as possible, which of course leads to our next item, humiliation. They're completely humiliated their entire lives. They're laughed at, they're scorned, they're treated like animals, and they have no rights. And of course, it leads to the despair that most of them feel. If you hear Palestinians describe their lives, the one thing that you will hear repeatedly over and over again is a slow death. That's the way their lives feel, a slow death. They're in despair. And of course, they're angry. You cannot abuse people in this way without making them angry. They're incredibly angry. They live with murder. They frequently, watch their friends and family being murdered. If you look at the demographics or the statistical data about suicide bombers, almost all of them have had family members or very close friends murdered in front of them. And of course, this causes a great deal of grief. They're grieving. Many of them resort to this desperate act while they're still grieving over people that they've watched being murdered in front of their eyes. And of course, they're Muslims. Now, let's just think about all this. Why do you think the evil Muslim suicide bombers committed this crime? What could it be? Well, unless you're a complete, ridiculously insane fool, you would have to come to the conclusion that it was Islam. Ooh, they're Muslims. That's why they did it. It wasn't any of those other. No. Forget all this. It doesn't exist. That stuff there, no. It doesn't exist. It was the evil book that they read that poisoned their mind and made them go strap on a bomb and end their lives. That's the only thing it could possibly be. Thanks for watching.